Next is the back piece. And we're going to put the wings on, stitch everything together. Slowly and steadily, we're going to get this done. So now, let's bring you in here. We're going to mark 1 inch from the bottom because we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance and we want a half inch space. And 1/2 inch from the top here. And that is where this guy here gets pinned. Just pin all around and try and keep your lines as straight as you can. So now you can see where if this was folded the other way, we'd be fighting to line everything up properly. Now since we're doing a New Hope, we have a little wiggle room around here on the bottom. We can pull this in just a little bit more. As a matter of fact, let's mark that first. Right there. Fold that in, fold that and that. That's better. It's a 32nd of an inch. Nobody but me would notice, but I'd notice. And we are 1/2 inch too tall here. We'll put a mark. Line it up just a little bit better. Probably not going to be able to pull 1/2 inch out of it, but no one is going to notice that except for me. And I will notice it every time. Same thing on the other side. 1/2 inch from the top. One inch from the bottom. Now if you're a TIE pilot, this all gets covered up with chest armor anyway. If you're an X-Wing pilot, you got the flak vest. The only time this is ever really noticeable is bridge crew. Guess they're reserve tie. So now we're going to stitch, and this is where the stitching gets interesting. This is a pocket top stitch. It's the first time we're also going to come in contact with a reinforcing stitch. So again, we're just going to run right along the edge. Nice and careful, take your time. On these I tend to pull the pin as I go. Nice and easy. Turn. I don't like this pucker right there, so we'll push that in. Alright, now we change stitches. This is a reinforcement stitch. It's a zigzag. I have it 2 millimeters wide, and the stitch length is 0.4 millimeters. I go back to the one. Turn. Follow the edge back up. Turn. We turn and do another reinforcing stitch. Again, it's a zigzag. On my machine, it's a 4. The stitch length, which is the top number, is a 0.4, and the stitch width is a 2. And that is pretty much what all pockets are going to be like. It's kind of hard to see. I'll get some scrap orange and stitch it in black so you can see what it'll look like a little better. So I just did a real quick pocket so you can see what I'm talking about. We start with the normal stitch on the outside. Then we go to a reinforced stitch, which is at 4 and 2. And it comes down, back, and it ends in that. Anywhere that there's going to be pull, I tend to do this stitch. Pockets have 2 wherever you put your hands in. The flaps that go on top also have 2 on either end. Well, 1 on either end. It just really helps strengthen the fabric, and it takes it from being a costume to more of a uniform. I want it to look as realistic as I can. That extra bit of strength helps too. For the back pieces, this piece gets pinned and stitched along here, and this piece gets pinned and stitched along here. And the same thing to this one. Fit. Now we sew 1/2 inch along here and a zigzag to lock everything in place. Let's pin the back all together now. There's a left and a right, a top and a bottom. We need to pin this side to this side. And the easiest way to do that is to just flip it inside out so this flap is out of the way, somewhat. And then just pin like that. Since it's fabric, it wants to lay flat. And we have this piece that's folded over that also wants to lay flat. We're going to have little bumps here and there. Flatten it out as best you can. Bring this in. So just lay it flat. There's absolutely nothing special here. Alright, again, we just fold it over and pin. This gets stitched exactly the same as the reinforcement stitch on the pocket. So we're going to do a 1/2 inch along here, flip it over, and then do the 2 double stitches on top. So again, anywhere that has a sharp curve, like here, we put in a couple of relief snips, flip it over, pin it flat, so then we just pin. And then, once that's stitched on, that's the back wing part that allows for shoulder expansion. Same thing with the other side. Flip this and pin. So I'm just pushing everything nice and flat. The flatter I can make it here, the easier it's going to be to sew. The only thing to keep in mind when you're sewing is to make sure that this is pushed out of the way, because the last thing you want to do is stitch that on top. Or have it weirdly bunched like this and stitched. So that's one done. On to the other side. It is the exact same thing. Then the last thing we do here is we take the bottom, we align these two edges, pop in a couple of pins so you can see where I'm talking, from here to here. And just do a simple zigzag stitch. That makes this one piece, so you don't have to worry about accidentally pulling it or it lining up weird. And that is well within the seam allowance, so you will never see it. But it'll make our lives way easier in the long run. You only really have to do that on the bottom. See, we didn't quite line up. We can just adjust that a touch here and here. You don't have to worry about that on the top because we're about to attach the front to the top. And again, the seam allowance will hide all of our crimes. So it doesn't have to be exact. It really does just have to be close enough. Here's our completed back pattern. Right side out. We're going to take the front pieces and just attach them. Make sure the shoulder is to the shoulder. Or I mean the sleeve to the sleeve. Straight edge in. We're just going to pin them right here. And the same thing for the other side. Now this is going to get stitched just like everything else. We're going to have a single stitch going all the way across at the 1/2 inch, a zigzag stitch to lock the edge of the fabric in. We're going to flip it over and do 2 double stitches. Most of sewing really is just doing the same thing over and over and over again. Tend to throw a couple right in the middle, just so I have less to mess with. It's easier to deal with that way. There we go. Now we stitch these, zigzag, flip them over, stitch the rest. Quite lined up. Pull the pins. And a zigzag stitch. I want to fold the whole thing open, and then we want to fold this part back. So I want to fold it towards the back, and then do the top stitch same as normal. Make sure everything folds towards the back. In a spot like this, since there's so much fabric there, it tends to bunch weird. Forgot I had the pins in. That's much better. Tends to bunch weird, so you want to take your time. I tend to lift my foot up a little bit, push it under a touch. That's usually all it takes. Going this way. Going the other way, it's going to be much easier. Take your time, nice and easy. Snip these apart just for fun. Fold everything forward. Easy peasy stitch. I would normally just stitch onto the next one, but for simplicity's sake, we're going to do these one at a time. Spin the fabric around. Fold this down, and then stitch straight across. Alright, now right here on this slightly darker spot, where this double stitch begins on the flat part, we want to put a reinforcement stitch. Again, on my machine, that's a 4 with a stitch length of 4, 0.4, stitch length of 0.4, and a width of 2. We just let it walk its way through. And I go back to the standard one. Rinse and repeat on the other side. And that's it. Back and chest are attached. On the sleeves. Alright, back piece is put together. It's a good place to stop. Take a break for a couple of days, relax. It's not a big deal. Next, we're going to pin everything to everything we have just done.